Renting out of the facilities is just one of the many ways that Tongchai Medical Institution raises funds to fulfill its role of a free clinic, that is, providing free medical consultation and medicine. The other methods they have used to raise funds include getting donations from philanthropists and holding charity events, which they are still currently doing. As such, one may question, with the reallocation to the new building, which happens to emphasize less strongly on traditional Chinese culture, as well as the renting out of its facilities and other fundraising methods, how do we know that Tongchai Medical Institution is not exploiting the name of a free clinic and secretly making profits? Especially with the saga concerning charitable organizations like National Kidney Foundation and Renci, the public and the government have raised doubts regarding the existence of such organizations. Indeed, it is not known how the excess contributions from the holding of charity events and Flag Day are handled. However, with the tightening of government regulations regarding disclosure and increased transparency on the part of organizations, efforts are made to prove that such free clinics or charitable organizations do not exist merely for economic purposes. In fact, in the case of Tongchai Medical Institution, doctors and staff actually receive lower salaries compared to other TCM clinics, and such salaries are lower than what they should be receiving. Also, Tongchai Medical Institution publish their financial statement on their website and are transparent about how they handle their financials. Thus, although Tongchai Medical Institution has incorporated modern features in its clinic and new ways of raising funds, its role still has not changed fundamentally, and we cannot say that TCM practices are reduced to its economic value and function. That's all for the first 2 points, and Wei Wei shall now carry on with the later half of our argument, after which she will wrap up our presentation with a conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. Now I'll touch on the last 2 arguments. The third argument we have is the forms of hybridization. In the past, the older generation was skeptical to combining Chinese and Western forms of treatment, and other than TCM, it was not unusual for people to seek medical treatment from spiritual mediums. But today, we see TCM practices taking on modern forms, and they are hybridized with Western-styled practices as seen in polyclinics or general hospitals. This is due to increasing worldwide emphasis on complementary medicine as well as higher literacy among the general public. To add on, we look at TCMI. The clinic has both generalist and specialist clinics which cover 5 disciplines, namely acupuncture, infertility, nephropathy, diabetes and hypertension, and oncology. On top of that, physicians have their own individual rooms and they wear white robes which portray a more Western image, and this is more professional in today's context. Also, TCMI has proper registration and medicine dispensary counters, electronic display of queue numbers to provide orderly treatment for patients. This reduces waiting time, and the computerized system keep good records for patients. In TCMI, herbs are not only kept in wooden cupboards and customized according to patients' individual needs, but pre-packed medicine, sachets, and bottles are increasingly being used to treat more standardized ailments. So, does the forms of hybridization increases the economic functions of TCM practices? We can see that hybridization has improved the traditional Chinese way of administering medical treatments, increased efficiency, and it might seem like there is an economic meaning behind all of this. But TCMI is still ultimately a free clinic which serves to provide free medical treatment to as many people as their resources can allow. Also, the TCM practices are not lost, but instead hybridized in forms that are deemed as more professional and widely accepted in today's context. For our last point, government's emphasis on TCM. In the past, there has been little attention paid on TCM education and licensing by the government. Today, increased emphasis on education in the field of TCM showed efforts on government's part to conserve TCM as part of the Chinese heritage and culture. The schools specializing in TCM training are Singapore College of Traditional Chinese Medicine, Nanyang Technological University, Institute of Chinese Medical Studies, and in the case of TCMI, they have their own medical research institute, library, and herbs laboratory, as mentioned by Lynette earlier. On top of conservation efforts, there are more emphasis on licensing and regulation of TCM practitioners to ensure that the standards of TCM practices are met in Singapore. For example, the Traditional Chinese Medicine Practitioner Act was passed on 14 November year 2000. In the case of TCMI, seminars and lectures were conducted to upgrade the knowledge and skills of practicing Chinese physicians by inviting well-known professors from China and other countries. And in 1994, scholarship provided for physicians to go to China for further study. At present, they have 6 physicians awarded the Doctor PhD degree and 3 physicians awarded degree in Chinese medicine. So, has government's increased emphasis reduced the rich cultural practices? With increasing popularity of TCM in Singapore today, as showed by a survey conducted by the Ministry of Health, that in 1994, 45% of the population consulted a TCM practitioner, but in 2004, this number increased to 53%. The government paid more attention to TCM and made increasing contributions in this field. As more investments in TCM are made by the government in recent years, it could be argued that the government is only concerned about economic development in view of the rising popularity of TCM in Singapore. Although there could be an economic meaning to it, the advent of schools specializing in TCM and licensing of TCM practitioners shows that the government is also making efforts to conserve and raise the standards of TCM practices in Singapore. This would fulfill and strengthen the fundamental role that TCM clinics played in early Singapore, which is to provide medical treatment and improve the health of the population. Thus, we cannot say that these TCM practices are reduced to its economic value and function. Therefore, in conclusion, rich cultural practices today in terms of TCM practices are hybridized with modern elements but are still mainly symbiotic. Some of these TCM practices are still mainly conserved and are not intuitively reduced to its economic value and function, although we recognize that more emphasis is placed on its economic value than in the past. Thank you for your kind attention, and we have come to the end of our presentation. Please leave your comments and queries at the forum. Thank you.